After struggling with infertility for years, Andy and Sarah finally decided to adopt. But just 1 week after the birth, the doctors discovered something that left the couple in shock. Andy and Sarah were more than just a couple. They were best friends, business partners, and lifelong playmates. Their deep understanding of each other, paired with their ability to forgive easily, made their relationship both healthy and joyful. They were always finding ways to bring happiness to one another, and anyone who knew them could speak of their beautiful love story. Both Andy and Sarah had a deep love for children and dreamed of having a big family. They hoped to have all their kids before turning 30. After getting married in 2011, they began trying for a child immediately after their honeymoon. Little did they know, the journey would be a challenging one. Initially, Andy and Sarah weren't too concerned about their inability to conceive, as they had only been trying for a few months. However, when nothing changed after a year, their restlessness grew, and they began making more frequent visits to the hospital in search of answers. Unfortunately, the doctors often told them there was nothing wrong, but couldn't explain why they weren't conceiving. For 3 years, the couple held on to hope. However, everything changed after one hospital visit, which left them devastated. A doctor finally diagnosed them with unexplained infertility, shattering their dreams and leaving them feeling hopeless. He told them they would never have a child. "I thought I would finally be happy. How do I wake up each day knowing I would never be able to have a child? It's so painful. I feel so empty. I feel like there is no reason to go on," Sarah had said amidst tears when she and her husband got home that day. In the months that followed, their lives seemed to move slowly. Their nights were longer than usual, and their days were dull and uneventful. However, they eventually realized that they shouldn't just sit and do nothing. So they visited a specialist who advised them to consider IVF. Sadly, they found out the IVF procedure would cost about $60,000. While that wasn't enough reason to dissuade the couple from going ahead with it, what the specialist revealed next totally dashed their hope. The couple was told that they had only a 10% chance of getting pregnant with IVF. "It felt like our lives were over. It was as if we had nothing to live for." Imagine craving something so badly and discovering that you would never have it, no matter how hard you try. "It was really tormenting," Andy said. After 3 years of coming up empty, the couple finally gave up on having their own kids and decided to opt for adoption. The moment we made that decision, our lives totally transformed. We became quite happy. We started eating healthy and sleeping well at night, Sarah explained. Soon enough, the couple was matched with a birth mother, Lizzie. When it was time for Lizzie to have an ultrasound, Andy and Sarah went with her, and that was when they discovered something unexpected. The scan results revealed that Lizzie was pregnant with not 1, not 2, but 3 babies. Just wow! When the doctor said we were expecting 3 babies, Lizzie and I both shed tears of joy. She knew about our struggle with infertility, and she was genuinely happy for us, Sarah said. Although a bit shocked by this unexpected news, the couple was over the moon with the surprising turn of events. "We were told we would never have kids, and all of a sudden, we were now expecting 3 kids. It's a miracle, and we were so happy," Andy said. As the pregnancy progressed, Andy and Sarah made sure to accompany Lizzie to her antenatal checkups. Everything seemed to be going fine until the couple suddenly received a call one night that Lizzie had gone into labor. It would have been good news, but it was a preterm labor. The babies were less than 37 weeks gestation. Wasting no time, Andy and Sarah rushed to the hospital. They got there just before Lizzie was wheeled into the operating room for an emergency C-section. I was so worried and frightened. I was panicking. Everything wasn't going as we planned, but Lizzie remained optimistic. She told me everything would be fine, and somehow I believed her, Sarah said. In due time, Lizzie was wheeled into the operating room while Andy and Sarah stayed in the waiting area. While waiting, the couple held hands and prayed for the safety of the birth mother and the safe delivery of the babies. After waiting for an hour, which felt like ages, a doctor finally walked over to the nervous couple. "How's Lizzie?" "How are the babies?" Sarah asked, and the doctor's bright smile was enough to tell her that everything went well. In a room in the hospital, Lizzie was slowly recovering from the anesthesia, while in another room in the intensive care unit, the triplets, Joel, Hannah, and Elizabeth, were kept in an incubator and closely monitored by the nurses. The couple was allowed to see the triplets later that day. As soon as we saw them, we immediately fell in love with them. We felt connected to them. Andy and I knew we would do everything to make them happy until our last day together, Sarah explained. The couple returned home and started putting plans in place to welcome the babies home in a couple of months. However, later that night, at about 11:30 p.m., something terrifying happened. Sarah suddenly fell sick. She was burning up. After giving her some over-the-counter drugs, Andy gave her a cold bath and tucked her in bed. She complained about feeling dizzy and uncomfortable until she finally dozed off. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling energetic and began craving all sorts of food. In the days that followed, she constantly felt fatigued and nauseous. It continued this way for a few weeks, and the couple decided it was best to visit the hospital for a checkup. Andy dropped Sarah off at the health center. I was frightened. I didn't even know what to think. I was scared that something was wrong with me, and I couldn't help but wonder what would become of my babies who were still in the NICU, Sarah explained. As soon as Sarah took her seat, the doctor smiled at her and said, "You're expecting." I smiled back at him and said, "Andy dropped me off earlier. I'm here alone. I'm not expecting anyone." But he looked at me. This time his smile broadened and he said, "No, ma'am, I'm serious. You're expecting." It took a few minutes before I figured out what he meant. Then I touched my stomach and my jaw dropped. I was speechless. When he saw that I finally understood him, he shook my hands and said, "You're expecting a baby. You are 2 months pregnant." Sarah immediately broke the news to Andy, who started screaming happily at his workplace. But the surprise wasn't over yet. In another week, this lucky couple would learn something even more shocking. The next week, Sarah and Andy went for an ultrasound, and you won't believe the results. The scan showed that Sarah was pregnant with twins. Incredible, isn't it? The couple was now expecting a boy and a girl. When Andy learned of Sarah's pregnancy, he had joked that they would probably have twins, but never for a minute did he think it would happen. In due time, Sarah went into labor, and the twins, Abigail and Andrew, were born. But if you think the surprises are over, just wait until you see what happens in a year. And don't worry, it's good news. In the meantime, it's worth mentioning that Sarah and Andy received tremendous support from friends and family. Becoming a family of 7 overnight was no small feat, and their loved ones stepped in to help. Now for the good news. Just over a year after welcoming their twins, Sarah became pregnant again, this time with a single baby. 9 months later, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Caleb. It's truly heartwarming to see how this couple went from struggling with infertility to becoming proud parents of 6 healthy, beautiful children. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below.